In 1968, a restaurant owner did something so disgusting it should have ended his life overnight. He spat in Muhammad Ali's food, again and again, right to his face, and Ali kept coming back. But the real twist. Ali knew the whole time, and what he did next turned hate into something nobody expected. Chicago, 1968. If you were there, you would have felt it in the air, the anger, the fear, the shouting on the TV, the arguments in diners, the way neighbors stopped smiling at each other. And in the middle of all that noise, one man walked into a restaurant like he owned the room, not because he was loud, not because he demanded attention, but because the room gave it to him without meaning to. Muhammad Ali, and what happened inside that Italian restaurant wasn't just disrespectful, it was betrayal, the kind you can't wash off with soap, the kind you remember every time you swallow, because a restaurant owner did something unforgivable. He spat in Muhammad Ali's food, not once, not twice, but 3 weeks in a row. And here's the part that makes this story feel unreal. Ali knew. He knew every time, but he kept coming back, kept eating, kept smiling like nothing happened. And when the owner finally broke, Ali didn't punish him. Ali did something far more dangerous than revenge. He gave him a mirror, and that mirror changed the man's life forever. But that truth stayed buried for nearly 50 years, until Ali's funeral, when an 89-year-old man stood up in front of a crowd, hands shaking, voice breaking, and confessed. Sal Benedetti wasn't born rich, he wasn't born lucky, he was born hungry. The kind of hungry that doesn't just mean food, it means proof. Proof that you belong, proof that you matter, proof that your struggle means something. Sal built his restaurant from the ground up on the south side of Chicago, Benedetti's Italian restaurant. Brick oven, old family recipes, warm lights, white tablecloths, a place where the pasta smelled like home and the bread came out steaming like it had a soul. For 30 years, Sal worked like a machine, 18-hour days, no vacations, no excuses. His hands became thick and worn, his back bent like a man carrying a whole building by himself. And when it finally became successful, he wore that success like armor, because this restaurant wasn't just a business, it was his name, his pride, his proof, and Sal was proud of something else too. America, not in a quiet way, in a loud, hard way, the kind of patriotism that doesn't ask questions, the kind that believes if the country calls, you go, you don't complain, you don't resist, you don't embarrass the flag. Then the Vietnam War ripped that belief wide open, because suddenly young men were being sent away, and not all of them were coming back. Sal had a nephew named Tommy, 20 years old, the type of kid who made people laugh without trying, the kind of young man who hugged his mother like he'd never let go even when he had to. Tommy got drafted in 1967, and at first, Sal told everyone, "He'll be fine, he's strong, he's smart, he'll come home a hero." Tommy wrote letters every week, funny letters, optimistic letters. He talked about the other soldiers, about the heat, about missing his mother's cooking. And Sal, this tough, stubborn man, would read those letters twice, sometimes 3 times, because those words made him feel like Tommy was still close, still alive, still safe. Then March 1968 came, and the letters stopped. At first, Sal made excuses. He's busy. The mail is slow. He'll write soon. But a week passed, then another. And then one day, a uniformed man came to the door. You don't forget moments like that. The air changes. The room gets smaller. Even the walls feel like they were listening. Tommy had been lost in an ambush outside Saigon. Just like that. A young life, erased from a family like someone tearing a page out of a book. Sal didn't know how to carry that kind of pain, so he didn't carry it. He turned it into rage. And rage always needs a target. That's when Muhammad Ali became the target, because while Tommy was gone, Ali was everywhere, on TV, in newspapers, in conversations. Ali had refused the draft. He had been stripped of his heavyweight title. Half the country called him brave, the other half called him a disgrace. And Sal lived in that second half. To Sal, Ali wasn't a man with beliefs. Ali was an insult, a symbol, a reminder that someone strong and famous got to say no, while his nephew had no choice. He should be there instead of Tommy. Sal would say, He's healthy, he's strong, but he thinks he's too good to serve. And every time Sal said it, the words didn't just come from anger. They came from grief he didn't know how to name. Because if Sal admitted the war might be wrong, then he had to face a terrifying thought. What if Tommy didn't die for something meaningful? What if Tommy died for nothing? Sal couldn't allow that thought, so he didn't. He protected himself with blame. Then came a Tuesday evening in September 1968. The restaurant was busy, like always, plates clinking, people laughing, the smell of garlic and sauce filling the room. Sal stood behind the bar, wiping a glass, pretending everything was normal. When he looked up, and his whole body stiffened, there he was, Muhammad Ali, not on a screen, not in a newspaper, in his restaurant. Ali walked in with two other men, dressed casually like they were just hungry and looking for dinner. But Ali didn't have to do anything to be noticed. His presence hit the room like thunder you feel before you hear. Some people stared, some looked away, some leaned forward like they couldn't help it. Sal's first instinct was simple. Throw him out. Right now. Let the whole room see it. Let the whole city hear about it. But something stopped him. Maybe it was pride, because Benedetti's didn't turn customers away. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe Sal didn't want to admit he was scared of what he might do if he confronted Ali face to face. So, he watched. Ali got seated near the window. A waitress walked over. Ali smiled. He joked with her like he was an old friend. He wasn't acting like a villain. He wasn't acting like a traitor. He was acting like a man ordering dinner. And then Ali ordered it. Spaghetti carbonara. Benedetti's specialty. Sal felt something snap inside him, because carbonara wasn't just a dish. It was his pride. It was his family recipe. It was the one thing people came back for. And now Ali was going to sit there and enjoy it like he deserved anything good in this world. Sal didn't think. He moved. He went straight to the kitchen and told the cook, "I'll make this one." The cook looked surprised. Sal rarely cooked anymore, but he didn't argue. Sal grabbed the pan, the pasta, the sauce. He made it perfectly. His hands knew the motions like prayer. And for a moment, just a moment, you could almost pretend Sal was calm. Then he leaned over the plate and spat into it. Not a little, not by accident, on purpose, with hate. He stirred it in carefully, making sure no one could see. No one but him. Then he carried the plate out himself, walked to Ali's table, placed it down like it was a gift. "Our specialty," Sal said, forcing a smile. Ali looked down at the plate. Then he looked up, and their eyes met. Sal swore later that in that moment, Ali knew. Not because Ali accused him, not because Ali reacted, but because Ali's eyes didn't look confused. They looked aware, like he saw right through Sal's smile. Ali nodded politely. "Thank you," he said. "It looks delicious." And then Ali ate. He ate the entire meal, every bite, slow, calm, like nothing was wrong. He even complimented it, left a generous tip, and walked out smiling. Sal stood there frozen. He expected to feel victory. He expected to feel satisfied. But instead, he felt hollow, like he'd taken a swing and hit nothing but air. And he didn't understand why. Until the next Tuesday, when Ali came back, same table, same companions, same calm smile, same order, spaghetti carbonara. Sal's stomach tightened, because now it wasn't a coincidence. This was a message, or a challenge, and Sal didn't know which was worse. He went back to the kitchen, made the carbonara again, and this time he spat in it with more venom, more anger, more grief. He carried it out himself again, trying to hide his shaking hands. "You again," Sal said, forcing friendliness. "You must really like our carbonara." Ali smiled. "Best in Chicago," he said. "I'll be telling everyone about this place." And then he ate it again, every bite, even bigger tip, even warmer smile. As he stood to leave, Ali looked at Sal and said, "Compliments to the chef." Sal didn't move, didn't breathe, because now he was sure. Ali knew, and if Ali knew, then why was he coming back? Why would any man come back to a place where he's being disrespected like that? Unless he was planning something. And Sal had no idea that the real confrontation wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be quiet. It was going to happen the third week, when Sal's hatred finally met something stronger, something that didn't punch back, something that didn't shout, something that waited, until Sal couldn't stand himself anymore. The third Tuesday came faster than Sal wanted. He told himself Muhammad Ali wouldn't return. He told himself it was over. He told himself the man had made his point, whatever the point even was, and moved on. But deep down, Sal already knew, because some people don't walk away from poison. They walk back in and stare the poison in the face. That evening, Benedetti's was packed, forks scraping plates, glasses clinking, a couple laughing too loud in the corner like they were trying to drown out the world outside. Sal stood behind the bar, pretending he was focused on work, but his eyes kept sliding to the door. Every time it opened, his chest tightened. Every time it wasn't Ali, he exhaled like a man spared. Then the bell above the door rang again, and the room changed. It wasn't dramatic. No one screamed, no one pointed, but the energy shifted, like the whole place leaned in without meaning to. Muhammad Ali walked in. Same two men, same calm, same quiet confidence. He looked around like he belonged there, and maybe that was what made Sal hate him even more. Not because Ali acted arrogant, but because he acted normal. Ali got seated at the same table near the window. Sal watched the waitress walk over, watched Ali smile and speak politely, watched him glance down at the menu like he was choosing between dinner options, not walking through a battlefield of emotions. Then the order came in: spaghetti carbonara. Sal stared at the ticket like it was a threat. 3 weeks in a row, same dish, same man, same table. No, this wasn't a coincidence. This was a test. Sal stormed into the kitchen before anyone could say a word. "I'll make it," he snapped. The cook blinked. "Sal, you sure? I said I'll make it." The kitchen fell quiet. Even the sizzle of pans sounded louder than usual. Sal moved like a man on autopilot, pasta into water, sauce into pan, cheese, pepper, egg, everything perfect, everything controlled. And then he held the finished plate in both hands. It was hot, steaming, rich, beautiful. And suddenly, Sal felt sick, not from the smell, from himself, because now he wasn't just angry, he was trapped. He'd done it twice. He'd crossed a line, and now he had to keep crossing it to prove he was the same man he'd been last week. Because if he didn't, that meant he was wrong. That meant he was smaller than his own hatred. Sal leaned forward. He opened his mouth, and stopped. His lips trembled. His throat tightened. His hand shook so hard the fork on the plate rattled. And then, to his horror, tears dropped onto the counter. Sal Benedetti, the man who had built a life with hard work and pride, was crying over a plate of pasta. He stared down at the food, and he realized something terrible. He didn't even know who he was anymore. The anger was still there. But beneath it was something heavier: shame, exhaustion, a grief so old and sharp that it had worn his soul down to the bone. He couldn't spit. He couldn't do it. Not again. So he wiped his face fast, hoping no one saw. He carried the plate out, clean, unchanged, and he set it in front of Ali like it was the first honest thing he'd done in months. Ali looked at the food, then up at Sal. And this time, Ali didn't smile right away. He waited, like he was waiting for Sal to catch up to his own conscience. Sal stood there for a second longer than normal. Then, before he could stop himself, he pulled out a chair and sat down at Ali's table. The two men with Ali shifted uncomfortably. One of them leaned forward like he was about to speak. Ali lifted a hand, gentle but firm. "It's okay," Ali said. They stayed quiet. Sal's voice came out rough, like sandpaper. "Why do you keep coming here?" Ali didn't answer quickly. He looked at Sal the way a person looks at someone they're trying to understand, not someone they're trying to defeat. "Because the food is good," Ali said. Sal almost laughed at that, but the laugh died in his throat. "And," Ali continued, "because I wanted to talk to you." Sal's eyes narrowed. "Talk to me? You don't know me." Ali leaned back slightly, still calm. "Oh, I know you," he said. Sal felt a chill run through his arms. Ali's voice lowered, not threatening, just certain. "I know what you did to my food." Sal's mouth went dry. His heart started pounding so loud he thought the whole restaurant could hear it. I don't know what you mean, Sal whispered, but even he didn't believe his own words. Allie's eyes didn't leave his. You spit in it, Allie said quietly. The first 2 times I could taste it. Sal's face drained of color. The world narrowed to the table, the plate, Allie's eyes. How? Sal choked. Why didn't you say anything? Allie's answer came like a hammer wrapped in silk. Because I wanted you to feel it. Sal blinked hard. Feel what? Allie leaned forward slightly. I wanted you to keep doing it, Allie said, until you couldn't anymore. Sal's hands began to shake again. What kind of man, Sal whispered, voice cracking, what kind of man eats that and comes back for more? Allie held Sal's gaze. The kind of man who knows anger is just pain wearing a mask. That sentence hit Sal like a slap. He opened his mouth, and no sound came out. Allie continued, softer now. Your eyes told me everything. Sal swallowed. My eyes. When you brought me the plate, Allie said, you looked like you wanted me gone, like you wanted me punished. But you also looked scared, like part of you knew what you were doing was wrong. Sal's throat tightened. Because Allie was right. Sal had been scared, not of Allie, of himself. Sal's voice broke completely. I did it, he admitted. Twice. I was going to do it again. Allie nodded once, like he already knew. Sal's eyes filled with tears again. How can you sit here with me? He asked, almost pleading. How can you talk to me like I'm a person? Allie's face softened. And then he said something that made Sal freeze in his seat. I heard about your nephew. Sal's breath caught. No, Sal whispered. Don't. Allie didn't push, didn't accuse. He just spoke gently. Tommy, Allie said. He was 20. He died in Vietnam. Sal's chest clenched like his heart was being squeezed. How do you know his name? Sal whispered. I asked around, Allie said. After the first time, I wanted to understand why you hated me that much. Sal stared at him, stunned. This man Sal had painted as selfish, arrogant, cowardly, had gone out of his way to understand him, and that only made Sal's shame worse. Sal lowered his head. I blamed you, he admitted. I needed someone to blame. Allie nodded again. I'm sorry about Tommy, Allie said. I truly am. Sal's lips trembled. The old anger tried to rise one last time like a dying flame. You should have gone, Sal muttered. Not him. Allie didn't flinch. He didn't get defensive. He didn't raise his voice. He just said very calmly, maybe. Sal looked up, shocked. Allie's eyes were steady. But if I went, and Tommy still went, then that would be 2 young men gone instead of 1. Sal's face crumpled. He didn't have an answer for that, because that was the first time someone had said something that didn't feed his anger, but challenged it. And right there, at that table, in that restaurant, Sal felt the ground under his beliefs start to crack, and he didn't know what would be left when it broke. Sal didn't know how long he sat there staring at Muhammad Ali. It felt like the restaurant had faded away. The noise, the plates, the laughter, none of it mattered. All Sal could hear was his own breathing and the sound of his heart trying to decide if it was going to soften or explode. He looked down at the clean carbonara in front of Ali, the 3rd plate, the only one not poisoned, and Sal realized something that made him feel dizzy. This wasn't about pasta anymore. This was about a man who had chosen to swallow humiliation, on purpose, not because he was weak, but because he was trying to pull something ugly out of Sal without breaking him. Sal's voice came out like a whisper. I don't know what to think anymore. Ali didn't rush him. He didn't preach. He waited like he'd learned patience from being hit in the face for a living. Sal rubbed his palms together under the table like he was trying to erase what he'd done. I was so sure you were wrong, Sal said. So sure you were a coward. Ali nodded slowly. And now? Ali asked. Sal's eyes burned. Now I'm watching you sit here, Sal said, after what I did, and I can't understand it. Ali's eyes were kind but firm. You keep saying coward, Ali said. But you don't really mean me, Sal. Sal swallowed hard. Ali continued. You mean the fear inside you, the fear that Tommy's death might not have had meaning. Sal's entire body stiffened. That was it. That was the truth Sal didn't want to touch. Because if Tommy died for nothing, then what was Sal supposed to do with the love he had for that boy? What was he supposed to do with those letters? with the jokes, with the hope. Sal's chin trembled. Ali spoke softly, like he was walking through fragile glass. People don't just hate, Ali said. They hate because they're hurting, and they don't know where to put it. Sal stared at him. You think I'm hurting? Sal scoffed, but it came out weak. Ali didn't blink. I know you are. Sal tried to look away, but he couldn't. Ali's calm made him feel exposed, like the walls he'd built weren't strong enough in front of a man who could see right through them. Sal's voice cracked. I violated you, he said. That's what I did. I did something disgusting. Something criminal. Ali nodded. Yes, he said simply. You did. Sal flinched at the honesty, but then Ali added something that Sal wasn't ready for. But you are not an evil man. Sal blinked. Ali's voice stayed steady. You're a grieving man, and you're scared. Sal's throat tightened. Scared of what? He asked, though he already knew. Ali leaned in, gentle but direct. Scared that if someone like me can refuse the war, Ali said, then maybe the war is wrong. Sal's eyes filled again. Ali continued, and if the war is wrong, then maybe Tommy died for nothing. Sal's face collapsed. Because that was the fear he couldn't say out loud, the fear that lived in his bones, the fear that made him spit on a man who didn't deserve it. He covered his face with one hand. I can't live with that, Sal whispered. Ali didn't let him drown in it. He spoke like a man pulling someone back from the edge. He didn't die for nothing, Ali said. Sal looked up, eyes desperate. Ali's gaze didn't move. He died believing he was protecting people he loved, Ali said. That belief matters. That love matters. Sal's lips parted, but no words came. Ali's voice softened even more. But don't dishonor his memory by hating me, Ali said. Honor him by making sure no more nephews die in bad wars. Sal sat still, trembling. And for the first time since Tommy's death, Sal felt something other than rage. He felt responsibility. Not the kind that crushes you, the kind that wakes you up. Ali leaned back slightly, giving Sal room to breathe. Then Ali said, You want to do something about what you did? Sal nodded quickly. Yes, he whispered. Anything. Ali gestured lightly toward the restaurant around them. Use this place, Ali said. Make it a place that brings people together instead of keeping them apart. Sal listened like a man hearing instructions to save his own life. Feed people, Ali continued. Not based on politics, not based on color, not based on religion. Feed them because they're human. Sal's throat tightened. He nodded again. Ali pointed gently like he was painting a vision. Make this restaurant a table where enemies sit down and become neighbors, Ali said. Sal's eyes flooded, because suddenly he could see it. Tommy's laugh, Tommy's letters, Tommy's life, not as a weapon, but as a reason. Sal wiped his face with his sleeve, embarrassed, exhausted. Ali glanced at the carbonara and smiled slightly. You know, Ali said, it really is the best in Chicago. Sal let out a broken sound, half laugh, half sob. Ali stood up. Sal stood too, like he didn't want the moment to end. Will you come back? Sal asked. Ali looked at him for a long second. If you want me to, Ali said. Sal nodded hard. I do, he said. But I'll make your food myself from now on. I swear. Ali's smile returned, small and real. I know, Ali said. I trust you. And then Ali turned and walked out, leaving behind a man who felt like he'd been spared. After that night, Benedetti's changed. Not overnight, not like magic, but in a way that lasted. Sal put a sign near the entrance. No fancy words, just a message that felt like a challenge to the whole neighborhood. Everyone is welcome. People noticed. Black customers who had never felt comfortable there started coming in. So did white customers who had never sat across from someone different. At first it was tense. People kept to themselves. Voices stayed low. Eyes stayed cautious. But food has a strange power. When you eat, you soften. When you share bread, you become human again. Sal started a program for families who had lost someone in the war. Free meals, no questions, no arguments. If you were grieving, you were fed. And little by little, Benedetti's became something Chicago didn't have enough of in 1968, neutral ground, a place where pain didn't have to turn into hate. Ali came back often, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone, and Sal always made his plate himself. They talked for hours, about boxing, about faith, about family, about mistakes. And Sal carried a secret like a stone in his chest. He never told anyone what he'd done, because shame doesn't leave easily. It waits, it sits, it reminds you. Years passed, decades. Ali's body slowed. Sal's hair turned white, but the bond remained. Then June 3rd, 2016 came. Muhammad Ali died, and Sal, 89 years old, cried like a child, not because a legend was gone, because a friend was gone, a friend who had eaten his hate and handed him grace. Sal flew to Louisville for the funeral, even though his health was failing. He told his daughter, "I have to go." At the memorial, people spoke, athletes, celebrities, ordinary people, stories of greatness, stories of courage. Then, near the end, an elderly man stood up. Slowly, carefully, like every step weighed 100 pounds, he walked to the microphone. The crowd didn't know him, but Ali's family did. Sal's voice shook. "My name is Sal Benedetti," he said. "I owned a restaurant in Chicago, and I need to tell you what I did to Muhammad Ali." The room fell silent. Sal swallowed, tears already streaming. "In 1968, he said, I spat in his food, because I blamed him for my nephew dying in Vietnam." A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Sal continued, "He came back, and I did it again." You could hear people gasp. Sal's hands trembled, and the third time, "I couldn't do it. I sat down with him, and he told me he'd known all along." Sal looked toward Ali's casket. "Muhammad Ali ate my hate," Sal whispered, "and he loved me anyway." The room stayed silent, but it wasn't empty silence. It was the kind of silence that holds grief and awe. Sal wiped his face. "He could have exposed me," Sal said. "He could have ruined me, but he protected me. He gave me a chance to change." He took one shaky breath. "That's not human," Sal said. "That's divine." Sal stepped away from the microphone. No one applauded like it was entertainment. People stood because it felt like respect was the only thing their bodies knew to do. 3 months later, Sal passed away. But before he did, he left one request: a plaque in his restaurant. Ali's words, "Use this place to bring people together instead of keeping them apart." And under it, Sal's words, "He ate my hate. He gave me grace. He changed my life." Because in the end, the story wasn't about spit. It was about what Ali did with it. He didn't ignore the betrayal. He absorbed it. And then he returned something stronger than revenge. He returned love. And that kind of love doesn't just change one man. It changes everyone who hears the story and chooses to be better,